HiRez Studios is working on a new game that will be released later this year or early next year. How do I know? Well, mostly by accident. I was researching for my Is Royale Killing Smite video yesterday, and I happened to check up on HiRez Studios' careers website in that context. And what I found there is that there are loads of offers, job offers, for an unannounced new upcoming title. And before you freak out, no, this does not mean that they're gonna ditch all their other games for this new upcoming title. In fact, it may actually have something to do with one of their older titles, but we'll get into that later in the video. I also saw another post today that kind of goes in line with this, or confirms this rather, which was retweeted by Pixie Kitty on Twitter. There was a question on the Paladins Reddit, which was, how has Realm Royale affected the development of Paladins? Has it been difficult to keep the Paladins team fully staffed? To which HiRez Alyssa, the lead community manager for Paladins, responded, Realm Royale took off and had a super successful launch. We're totally thrilled for the Realm Royale team. They've been working their butts off since last year, and I think the game speaks for itself. As far as how it's affected the development or timeline for Paladins, it hasn't. The Paladins team has remained the same. The success of Realm Royale did provide a huge opportunity for the company, however, and they needed a larger development team for their ambitions. It was only around 15 people before. HiRez primarily moved over developers that were working on an incubator unannounced project set for later this year or early next year. Development on that project continues, but we definitely needed to shift resources to Realm Royale in the short term. Also, we are hiring a ton of positions for the project, so I encourage anyone interested to check out our career page. So far we know there is a new unannounced title, it's gonna be released later this year or early next year, and a lot of workers have been moved from that title to Realm Royale. This, to me, especially indicates one thing. HiRez did not expect the success of Realm Royale. It was supposed to be a Paladin spin-off kind of thing, kind of along the lines of let's see how far we can get with that and how many people like that game, and the game blew up. I mean, most HiRez employees have confirmed that they didn't expect the success, but I don't think anyone would have predicted a lot of large streamers playing it, especially with Fortnite being down on that day and everything. It was just very lucky for Realm Royale. And that's interesting because it means that HiRez probably has worked on this new unannounced title for a while now. They have been busy with that, and then Realm Royale just kinda got more successful than expected. And this may very well indicate that this may be the next big title that HiRez was planning following after Smite and Paladins. Paladins has been in the works since 2012 after all, previously named Aurum, and as such, it's not surprising that HiRez has been looking for a new big title to release. But how would we know if it's actually a big title or just a mobile game? Well, there are some indications that point in either direction really, and that's what we're gonna look at right now. In order to find out more, we can simply look into the job descriptions and the requirements for this unannounced project. Among the requirements for the level designer, you will find this: design and implement 3D levels using Unreal Engine 4. Many of the other positions' descriptions also include Unreal 4 engine at some point. And things are interesting when it comes to HiRez and Unreal. Smite uses Unreal 3 and a modified version of that more specifically. Paladins uses the same, and Realm Royale, based on Paladins, also uses the same. Previously, HiRez didn't have that much staff familiar with Unreal 4 as well. They probably got that over time and also gathered experience through one of their, well, less successful titles, being Hand of the Gods. That game was actually made in Unreal 4, and I imagine to some degree it was maybe practice for future titles as well, giving the team more experience, more time to work with Unreal 4. Now, why is this engine relevant? Unreal 4 can theoretically do mobile games, and it's not something that has never happened before. There are quite a few Unreal 4 mobile games. But it seems to not be the general trend from what I was able to find out. Many of the Unreal 4 games that are for mobile are often more geared towards transferring a game that was already on another platform over to mobile, rather than creating a from-the-ground experience for mobile in that. So the Unreal 4 engine for me is more of an indication that it's probably gonna be more towards a PC or console title. And there's another indication along with that, which is, to be fair, a little bit smaller, being that a lot of the preferred sections for these positions have AAA game development experience for a shipped title in there. And I feel like for a mobile game, that's not exactly always necessary, or mobile experience would be more important here. We can find out some more things from the art section. One of the positions requires a strong knowledge of human anatomy and proportions, meaning that the game will most likely have human characters. Not too much of a surprise there, but still worth pointing out. For the concept artist job description, there is the following wording. Explore a wide variety of ideas for new characters, clothing, weapons, vehicles, gadgets, and environments in a realistic style. Now, this is very vague, this doesn't really tell us what time zone the game would be set in or anything, but it still gives us an indication that this game will have weapons and possibly vehicles as well. This is further emphasized by the description of the lead character artist, who works closely with art director to keep quality and style consistent across all characters and weapons. Now, it shouldn't be too surprising for most that HiRez isn't suddenly switching over to the Stardew Valley kind of audience, but it's still nice to know that it's gonna be some sort of fighting game that includes weapons. It also to me strongly indicates that it's not gonna be another card game or anything along those lines. The description for all these jobs once again also indicates that the work on it started before Royale. Come join the creator of the critically acclaimed Smite, Paladins, Tribes Ascent and Global Agenda. No mention of Royale here yet. But there are also some counterpoints which makes this more interesting. I have the impression that this may be for yet another project alongside with the other one that we have here, but I may be wrong. If HiRez is working on 2 titles, this is definitely for the second one. If HiRez is just working on 1 title, then we can find out a lot more about that title here. The associate producer description is as follows. You will also enjoy a rare opportunity to help HiRez build an entire new division, contributing to 1 or more games in the process. And under who we are looking for? Somebody with interest in mobile games, and preferred candidates have fluency in Mandarin and demonstrable knowledge of mobile games market, best practices, development and/or publishing. What does that mean? HiRez will probably build up a mobile section. They had some outsourced mobile games before that didn't go too well until Tencent came in with Paladins Strike, which is actually very successful. As such, Tencent being based in China, the fluency in Mandarin is preferred because then communication with that stuff over there is easier, so they can exchange experiences for a more successful game. In the past, some of HiRez games have been leaked through trademarks. HiRez would have to do trademarks for their games, and then based on that people could find out what the possible title of the next game would be. In this case, it is not that easy. There are quite a few trademarks that haven't been used yet. HiRez has a trademark for Smite Blitz, which uses a mobile game engine, so that would go in line with that particular position. But it's not unlikely that Smite Blitz later became a Paladin Strike instead. There is a trademark for a Tribes Royale game. Now, Tribes was Tribes Ascent a while back, one of the less successful titles that HiRez had. And bringing that game back for a Battle Royale kind of title right now seems rather unlikely with Royale doing so well. I don't think they want to make competition for themselves within one market, and Tribes really isn't that much of a brand to work with right now either. So that's most likely just an earlier version of Royale. Another trademark that HiRez owned since 2012 is Killstreak, but we really don't know if Killstreak is still relevant at all. Likewise, there are newer trademarks from 2015 for Tribes Aerial Assault, Tribes Vengeance, Metal Tech and Earth Siege, but none of them have seemed to be used so far, and many of them don't really ring much of a bell for people nowadays, so I'm not sure if those are the titles we should be looking at. After all, there are also super old trademarks for Global Agenda, Sandstorm and Free Agent, which just simply never happened. Royale also only got their trademark in February this year, so it's not necessarily like every game will get their trademark much earlier, and HiRez may just not have the trademark yet. What we know though is that HiRez always had an interest in shooter games, and he always wanted to have a very successful shooter game, and I'm not sure if he feels like he's achieved that with Paladins or with Royale yet, so I imagine they may very well be working on another shooter, maybe a more fast-paced one again. But aside of all these options, there is one more possibility, and that is reworking an older title to work on Unreal Engine 4. Now, a lot of the Smite players especially, and probably the Paladins players too, would hope for that, but I don't think that's necessarily what it's gonna be. While there is no place where it's specified this is gonna be a new game, because it's just an unannounced project so far, there's just relatively little reason to believe that HiRez would reboot a game that is in a genre that's basically not blowing up anymore or getting much of a following anymore, being either MOBAs or hero shooters, and they would probably rather look for something that can bring in a newer crowd rather than trying to make a new take on a game that is still stable and still bringing in money. As much as I would like a redo of Smite on Unreal 4, I think the chances for that are unfortunately relatively minor. And that is it for this overview of HiRez unannounced upcoming title. Let me know in the comments down below what you think what this could be, or if you maybe have any more info that we could work with. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, feel free to sub button with the bell, it really helps me out. Other than that, see you for the next one tomorrow. DukeSloth, out.